Hey, what is going on, everybody? Welcome to Upkick MMA episode 179. I am Brendan. UFC Fight Night Dern versus Jan prelims. We're going to go over that here. If you're looking for the main card, including the main event, that is in the last video. This one's going to cover John Castaneda versus Daniel Santos, Oleinik versus Ilir Latifi, Joaquim Silva versus Jesse Ronson, and the rest of the prelims here. If you are here, if you're the first time you're here, hit subscribe so you know when the next video is coming out. If you like podcasts about MMA, like Bellator, UFC, ONE FC, I cover all that stuff here. I break down all the fights, go round by round, and give some scorecards and break down the fight. So subscribe, know when the next video is coming out. Let's get going. Also, I know that this get up isn't exactly my normal one. I'm usually in casual wear, but this I just got done doing some yard work, and this is the last one that I am doing for this weekend. All right, let's talk about John Castaneda versus Daniel Santos. Good fight while it lasted, right? Santos getting the KO finish in the second round here. John started the fight using really kick heavy. Okay, he used a tight guillotine to defend against a takedown, and then John ended up landing a left high kick that staggered Santos. But Santos recovered almost immediately, and he got back up, dropped by a straight left hand, and then Santos was doing a decent job throwing heavy hands, but he isn't having the effect on Castaneda that he wants, and John was able to find openings and got a takedown. What an amazing fight, by the way. This first round was fireworks. John landed another left high kick and followed up with a ton of shots, but Santos was taking the damage, working his way back with output of his own, and by the end of the round, you could tell that Santos starting to put it on him and that Castaneda's cardio was going to be an issue. It's very similar to his training partner. Daniel Santos trains with Charles Oliveira, who is famous for getting the shit beat out of him, but then staying in there and getting finishes on the ground. And, having heavy hands of his own. What a fun round. I gave the first round to John, hands down, 10-9, way more damage, but you could tell by the end of that one that Santos was putting it on him. So look at the striking numbers, 40-19, way more damage for John. But, like I said, you could kind of see the writing on the wall that if Castaneda didn't recover really well in between rounds, that it was going to be a problem for him. And that's exactly what we saw. Santos did not stop moving forward. He's trying to sap the cardio of John by digging to the body with kicks, landed a couple uppercuts, and after grappling exchanges, Santos was able to land some really good shots of his own. And then Santos pressured. His pressure was crazy, man. It was slowly breaking John down, and then Castaneda was taking these headshots and not even flinching, but then Santos landed a nasty knee that finally put him down and ended up getting the TKO finish. Good win for him. And that strategy, like I said, if you're a new fighter, if you're new to MMA, you're an aspiring fighter, and you want to follow someone's technique, you want to follow someone's strategy, I do not recommend that one. It is a recipe for disaster. It is not a recipe for longevity. And the fact that Charles Oliveira has managed to reach the highest level and become the champion, I know he's not now because of the weight miss. The fact that he's done that is the exception that proves the rule, right? It's not often that you see a guy later in his career, after taking a ton of damage, keeping that same technique and still managing to come out on top and making it to the highest level. And in this case, being the champion. It's not common. I don't recommend it. Usually it's a recipe for a really fun fighter who makes for fun action fights. So we'll see what happens going forward with Santos and if he can keep this up, because honestly, all it takes is one. You take one good crack like that and you're out, and then that's the end of the fight. So he's a fun fighter to watch, and he's going to be fun to see going forward. But like I said, longevity-wise, it does not bode well. Doesn't mean he's a bad fighter. Doesn't mean he's necessarily going to wash out or anything like that. Just statistics show that that's not a good strategy. Oleinik versus Ilir Latifi. So going into this one, the biggest talking point was Ilir Latifi. Latifi ends up getting the decision win here. The talking point was both of these guys are excellent grapplers. Latifi coming from the Greco-Roman background and Oleinik coming from Sambo and having, 45 submission finishes in MMA. So many of them have been in the UFC. It's been incredible watching him fight. I know he's been on and off pretty much his entire UFC career. But look at the people he's facing, right? Travis Brown, Victor Pesta, that's nothing. Anthony Hamilton, not a good one. Curtis Blades, Mark Hunt, Alistair Overeem, Walt Harris, Maurice Green, Fabricio Verdum, Derek Lewis, Chris Dawkins, Sergey Spivak. But he's might turn it around. He's looking pretty good. And Jared Vandera, who looks really good now, and Alir Latifi. The guy has faced some of the best heavyweights of his era, the people who are currently fighting, other than the champion. And honestly, he's made a good show for himself. And Alir Latifi showed him a lot of respect after the fight. We'll talk about that in a second. But they started the fight by meeting in the middle, shaking hands. It was kind of cool. I think John Anik called it the most gentlemanly way to start a fight he's ever seen. So friendly, very nice. It wasn't overly, they weren't hugging and congratulating each other in between rounds or anything like that some fighters have a problem with and some announcers have a problem with. But, to see them shake hands and be like, all right, let's do this. It's very respectful and kind of cool. Alir Latifi caught a kick early in the fight and got a takedown, and then he stayed on top. Alexei had his guard closed, and he was just holding Latifi in place. No real damage, and didn't have any submission attempts from the bottom because Latifi was shutting them all down, staying very conservative with his pressure, and doing an excellent job. Not a lot of action. Good round for Latifi. You can see here in the striking numbers, there wasn't a ton. 11-4 in favor of Latifi. Second round, striking not exactly high level. But when they tied up, so they got in the tie, the collar tie at one point, and you could tell that there was so much experience in everything they were doing. It's like watching a high level wrestling match. It was awesome to watch. When they were in those motions, you could see Latifi doing things, preventing Oleinik. I think Dominic Cruz pointed out exactly what he was doing. Keeping his head up instead of down after attempting a takedown, not giving Oleinik any opportunity to grab the neck. Latifi just dominated that entire round. Tons of control time, lots of clinch work, and Latifi dominated, like I said, from start to finish of that round, and he landed some good ground and pound to finish the fight, or finish that round. 2018. 17. So you look at the striking numbers, they're even, 17-17, but Latifi was on top for 1 minute and 45 seconds, and he had control pretty much the entire round. Last round, more of the same, but Latifi was getting the better of the clinch striking, and he's tired. A good thing that there was only 90 seconds left. Latifi just pitched a shutout in here, basically, with the grappling of Oleinik. Not able to get anything going. 30-27, in my opinion. That's what all three judges had it. 10-7 as far as striking numbers in this last round, but it wasn't about the striking. Alir looking to retire after this fight, being the last one on his contract, gave a ton. Oh, also he had staph on his left leg, his lower left leg, and having a staph infection, it got inflamed the past couple of days, so he has a crazy fever. And I understand there's some safety aspects, but as long as you don't have an open wound, it's fine, I guess. I'm always sketchy when people with staph fight, but in this case, his ability to go 3 hard rounds like that in a grappling heavy fight and still be able to push through it, especially being overweight, because he's not a natural heavyweight, right? He's carrying a lot of extra body fat. I think at one point he was fighting, I think he fought at 185 even, but I know he spent a lot of his career at light heavyweight, and he just clearly doesn't want to cut the weight anymore, and he's, enjoying life, eating food. Another funny thing he did, so he's like, I want that bonus, and then he said, hey, Mark Zuckerberg, why don't you throw an extra bonus in there for me too? Because Zuckerberg, I think, rented out the entire place just to have like a private. It's kind of fucking weird. I'm not a huge fan of that. People with money do what they want. I'm not criticizing him. I'm not criticizing the UFC for allowing it to happen. Some guy wants to buy all the tickets. I mean, how can you say anything bad about that? Right? It's the UFC's not losing out because they're selling all their tickets. The fans, I guess, you could kind of say are losing out, but it's not like this wasn't an arena, right? This wasn't some stadium. It was a fight night in the Apex. So, normally it's not a packed house anyway. A few dozen people are there normally. Good. I like this fight. I know it wasn't the most exciting as far as striking goes, but the grappling was very high level and it was fun to watch. You could tell Latifi was shutting everything down, doing a great job. And then he also gave a ton of respect, not only to Oleinik, but anybody who steps in the cage. And I loved what he said afterwards. Talking about Oleinik, people say like, oh, well, he's old. And he's like, yeah, old, not old. This guy brings it. And he does. Oleinik just kept walking forward. The guy looks like he looks like he's made of wood. Like, I know that's an overused, like, it's a cliche at this point, but the guy, as old as he is, he just keeps doing the damn thing, and he keeps going forward, and he's fighting at the highest level in MMA. It's something to behold. Really, he's just not having the kind of success as, Alistair Overeem did later in his career, or that Pitbull. Oh, poop. It was just Arlovsky, Andrei Arlovsky. He's not having that kind of success. He has his moments, and he's had his moments in the UFC. It's just not. It hasn't resulted in a title shot. But he did have opportunities. He fought Derek Lewis. Had he beat Derek Lewis, he was looking at a title eliminator fight essentially. I mean, really, that's what it is. So he's had opportunities. He's not able to cash in on them, and I think. I have nothing but respect for him and people who fight like that and his abilities. He's done some incredible things in the octagon alone, let alone what he did beforehand. Really fun guy to watch. I love watching him fight. And, when old guys get in there and get to do the damn thing, I love watching that. So good fight for Ilir Latifi. All right, Joaquim Silva versus Jesse Ronson. Kicking battle early with mostly one at a time, not a lot of combos. Ronson's leg kicks might have made Silva switch to orthodox, but and then Ronson, the one extending the combos now. Silva was still sticking to one at a time. Silva did land one good straight right hand. Silva ends the round with a good flurry and flying knee to hurt Ronson, taking that one 10-9 in my opinion. You look at the striking numbers, they do favor Ronson 25-20, but like I said, Silva had Ronson hurt near the end of the round, and that swung the damage in his favor. Had he not landed that, I would have given that first round to Ronson. But the second round, Silva able to land more to the body. Ronson doing the same thing that he did in the first round. He didn't really make an adjustment. Ronson was waiting more this round and got kneed and dropped for the TKO. So Silva made the adjustment, kept fighting through it, and Ronson did not. All right, my boy, Brendan Allen. Real quick side note here. Why do all Brendans look alike? Like I feel like a lot of us look very similar. I hear the name Brendan and I just, in my mind, like I work with a guy with the first name Brendan and he has similar facial features. Like we all look similar. It's weird. I know it's an Irish name, but I'm not Irish. So it's just strange that we all kind of develop the same way. It's strange. There's a lot of features that I see in other Brendans. I'm like, oh, okay. I know Brendan Schaub's kind of the exception, and obviously not every Brendan looks the same, but a lot of them I've noticed like have very similar looks. Allen landed a hard body kick and then gets his next kick caught and then ends up on his back. Allen locked the leg in half guard and exploded to reverse position. It was really cool. So in half guard on bottom, he actually intertwined his legs and locked the left leg of vJotko, who was on top. And then by locking that leg, he didn't allow him to put any pressure and then released it, opened his guard real quick, hip heist, and exploded and flipped over and got on top. Excellent reversal. Beautiful movement on the ground. They got up. Allen tosses him down, gets the half guard, rolls over to the back immediately, gets the rear naked choke, sinks it in with no hooks. Beautiful submission. Also, Brendan Allen was wearing a big, I don't think it was a coonskin hat, but it was very silly. Here, let's look at it, shall we? Oh, nope. We need to go to the prelims. Yeah, this hat, guys. How do you not love that? I love people who can goof it up a little bit. Not everything has to be so serious. Not everything has to be a fashion statement necessarily. You don't have to look fly all the time. I get it. Sometimes you want to dress up, you want to look good. I'm not begrudging guys who do that. They want to look good in a press conference, whatever. But guys who can do this too, make things fun. Have a fun personality, have a fun outfit. People with the mullets, I think they're just having fun with the good mustaches. I love this stuff. I really do. I love it in MMA, which is a sport, in my opinion, the best sport right now. Actually, ever. I think it's the best sport. I will argue that point with anybody who would love to argue with me. It's subjective, obviously, because I love it so much, but there are objective things that I do love about MMA. And because it's such a serious sport and because there are such dire consequences and the things that are happening are catastrophic, both for your health, both visually, broken limbs sometimes, just battered, beaten faces, cuts, blood everywhere sometimes. All of this stuff is just, you could even consider it gruesome, some people might. But it's just such a violent sport. And to see someone who can do all that, but also has, a loosey-goosey side, a fun side, it's nice to see that dichotomy, and it's fun. And that hat kind of brought that to my mind, and I'm like, I love that stuff. Okay, Julia Stolyarenko versus Chelsea Chandler. This took place at a catchweight because reasons. So at 140, I think Chandler might have stepped up a little bit short notice. This is an obligatory comment. I have to say it every single time. I know that's redundant. These women should not be fighting at 140 or 145 or at catchweight. This should have been a 135. Both women could have cut a little bit of weight. Chandler is a beastie woman though. She's large and in charge, and I don't mean that like she's overweight or anything. I mean she's got some muscle mass on her, right? Obviously they both have some weight that they could possibly lose to make 135, and she said she could do it, but she also said that she could fight at 145, and she's got power to do that as well. I'm okay with her doing either. She is a larger woman, and that is okay. I still think she's a bit on the bloated side for 145. That's not something I like to see. I always like to see fighters fighting in shape, in their weight class. Again, people who hear me say this, and this is the only one that they might hear, you want to call this out or whatever, to put it in context, I do it for everybody. This is not something against women. It's against everyone. Like, Ilir Latifi is overweight. I mentioned that earlier. He's not a natural heavyweight, shouldn't be fighting at heavyweight. That's not his optimal weight class, right? Daniel Cormier, did he win the title at heavyweight? Absolutely. But he also won the title at light heavyweight, and he was an excellent competitor at light heavyweight. So you could say, oh, well, you can't argue with success. That's fine. I'm saying optimally for his body, Daniel Cormier could have been lighter. So that's the kind of approach that I take. So Julia was throwing hard leg kicks to start the fight and got taken down easily, mounted, and but lost position going for an armbar. Chelsea stopped the armbar attempts with some ground and pound, so she just punched her face and said, I'm not getting submitted. How did Julia look so tired? It was 2 minutes into the fight and she was exhausted, breathing heavy, hands on her hips types of stuff, hands down. Chelsea had disdain for the movement and the strength of Julia. It did not look good for Stolyarenko. She looked fucking exhausted, and Chelsea walked her down, basically walked over her into mount, ground and pound TKO finish. She is very strong, Chelsea is, and based off this fight, I can't say much because I don't think Stolyarenko put on a good performance or showed her best out there. So it's hard to tell, but Chelsea, we might have finally a challenger at 145. Maybe. I know it's early to say, but 145 doesn't exist. It's got a champion and nobody else. All right, first fight in the card. Guido Canetti versus Randy Costa. Costa was rocking a beautiful mustache. Mustache of all mustaches. Again, gotta love that stuff. Guido was doing the damn thing past 40. I think he's like 42 years old, looking like an absolute beast, throwing nasty kicks like he always does. Costa had this like frenetic movement, and he was like jittery and moving really quick and bouncing everywhere. But Guido slowed that down, landing leg kicks early, chopping him down, got him off balance with one of the leg kicks, got the back, and got a real fast rear naked choke, finishing the fight without even the hooks in, similar to how Brendan did later in the night. So overall, this card, especially the prelims, action-packed, fun to watch. The main card, it was all right. I actually think Bellator had a good main card as well. I don't like comparing the two. I think they're a totally different product at this point. I think the commentary of the UFC is far and away the best in the business. I think the PFL is better than Bellator, but anybody can have good fights on any night, so it's not just about commentary. But if you want to go fight by fight, who had the better fights? Probably the UFC, but Bellator had some fun ones too. All right, that is it. Thank you guys for stopping by. If this is the only video you're watching, weird, but cool. I love that you're here and that you spend time here. So thank you so much for spending your time watching the video. It means a lot that you stop by. if you made it this far, subscribe to the channel. Submit to the channel. Subscribe to the channel so you know when the next videos are coming out. You'll like all the stuff I do. I promise. If you made it all the way through this. And I put out 2 or 3 videos every single week covering the UFC, Bellator, 1FC, PFL, Eagle FC. Sometimes I break down the fights just like I did, and I would love to have love more engagement. Have you guys comment down below. Let me know what you guys thought about the fight. So have an amazing week, and I love y'all.